What's up, guys? We are back for another review, kind of going through some Legends again. As you know, I got a lot of Legends recently, the X-Men wave, the recent Spider-Man wave, so a whole bunch of stuff to go through. And today we're looking at a longtime favorite character of mine for, I don't know, since I was a kid. I mean, I've always been a Wolverine fan, so that pretty much always means that I'm going to be a Sabertooth fan as well. They just go together. And this is Sabertooth in the classic style costume. So this is what I know of as a kid, from like that cartoon, from 80s and 90s comic books, all that stuff, everything. This screams nostalgia to me when I look at him. So this guy is in our standard Marvel Legends packaging, as you might expect. He's there in the window with his Build-A-Figure piece. We've got the X-Men logo on the front. We've got some artwork on the side, and then we have got product shot and a lineup, along with that Apocalypse Build-A-Figure just urging to be built on the back. So let's do it. Let's pull him out and check him out. Alright guys, so here he is out of the box, Sabertooth. We're going to run through all the normal stuff. We'll take a look at articulation first, and then we'll hit the sculpt and the paint on this guy. So as far as articulation goes, you know, this is pretty standard Marvel Legends. He's on that Hyperion body, so we kind of know what to expect here. Head can swivel, he can go down, he can go up. He's got pretty good range of motion up and down. He can also bob side to side. Arms can go out, they can spin all the way around. You've got a bicep swivel. You've got double jointed elbows, which are, that's about 90-ish, right? We've got hinged rotating wrists, and these are both side-to-side hinges. We've got an ab crunch. He can go back really far. He can go forward pretty far. Waist twist. Legs can go out pretty far. I'd say that's about as agile as Sabertooth needs to be. We can kick forward. We can kick back. We have got a thigh cut, of course. And we have got double jointed knees. They are pretty good. He's got beefy calves though, so obviously they're going to hit. You got a boot cut or a shin swivel, and then we have got a rocker and a hinge down there at the ankles. So, you know, basic Marvel Legends articulation, especially for this body type, it's to be expected in terms of what we're going to get out of this guy. Now, when it comes to this figure, the look is really everything for me. That's really what it comes down to. He could be slightly less articulated, but if he looked right, I think I would be happy with it. And for the most part, I think Hasbro did a pretty solid job here. I do still think that this guy needs to be bigger. You know, I always want that X-Men cartoon from the 90s look. I want that big, hulking, massive Sabertooth, you know, one that almost would be Build-A-Figure size, and that's definitely not what we got here. So, you know, obviously I knew that going in, but it's nice to dream a little. I would love to have him where he's, you know, maybe another inch taller with a whole just mess of, you know, back muscle back there, because Sabertooth was like all back in the show. He was huge, but he was a massive character compared to what we got here. But I'm okay with this look. It's definitely evoking that 90s, you know, kind of Jim Lee era X-Men look and feel, and I'm digging it. I like it pretty well. So again, it's on the Hyperion body, so we know what to expect here. You know, beefy legs, pretty beefy chest with some big arms. We've got the clawed hands here, and then of course he has the tiger stripe motif going on with his outfit, and everything for the most part is pretty clean. You've got the lines down here on his boots. We've got the stripes on the legs, and then we've got the paint on the inner thigh there. We, of course, have got the brown on the chest, and then on the back, I do have some little nicks here and there, but they're on the back side, so thankfully they're not very distracting. And then we have got the stripes on the bicep, which I think are done really well. You've got these new fin pieces. I don't believe these are reuse. I want to say they're new. If they're not, somebody let me know, but I think they're new to me at the very least. And then we've got the only place that I have like any real issues are like kind of in the joints, so I'm not going to really worry about paint slop in those joints, especially when I can understand that that might be a little more technically daunting to get those painted correctly. The big thing though is obviously the head sculpt, the face sculpt, and then the big mane around him. So there is a lot to talk about in terms of what's going on here, because if we come down to it, the nitty gritty, the one real oddball kind of issue is in that face. All right, so speaking of the face and the general neck, shoulder region, I'm going to start with the mane. So this thing is actually a separate piece. So you can pop it off. It pegs into this second hole on the back of the figure. So it's kind of to be expected with something like this. There's no way they were going to sculpt an entirely new torso for Sabertooth, but I like what they did, and it looks pretty good. Honestly, until I started seeing other people get this in hand, I didn't even think twice about the fact that it was going to be a separate piece, but it's pretty good. Once you get that peg in there, it looks pretty decent. There is a ton of paint in there, though. It is really really, really nice. It brings out the sculpt. It's obviously kind of a gray, and then it's got a gray, darker gray kind of wash in there. So it really looks great. It looks very much of the era that they're going for here. So I'm really happy with it. I think it's pretty solid. Beyond that, though, we do have this head sculpt, and at its base level, I'm very, very, very happy with it. It's very Sabertooth. We've got those, the kind of scowling eyes with no pupil in them. We've got the red around the eyes there. He's got the snarling, yelling expression. We've got the hair coming out the side of the mask. And then, of course, we do have his hair in general, and it's got a little bit of a wash in it to give it some life, give it a little more detail, bring out that sculpt, because he does have a whole mess of hair on the top of his head. The one real problem here, and it's just, I'm assuming it's a molding situation where they had to mold everything in 2 pieces because of the fact he has an open mouth with fangs. So I would assume one head might not be capable of being done when you pull it out of the mold. That's my guess here. I'm not a toy maker, but that's what I'm thinking here. So the lower jaw is its own piece. And what we're seeing, mine's not too bad, I don't think. What we're seeing is that there are some pretty bad seam lines between the upper jaw and the lower jaw. Your left, his right, is kind of bad on my figure, at least not as good as what I would want it to be. It's not terrible, but I've seen some pretty bad examples of this, so we might see some QC issues with this figure in terms of that lower jaw. That's really my only pain point. I think overall the look of this figure is on point. Again, I wish he was a little bigger, but in terms of the face and the head sculpt, I think it's really, really well done, except for that one little issue that obviously it's going to be your mileage may vary kind of thing on how good or bad your figure is. And just for the sake of comparison to really the only figure that matters, at least for me, here's a quick comparison for size sake of our Sabertooth figure with our new Wolverine figure. So you can see that there's an inch-ish or so difference between the two. Sabertooth is closer to the 7-inch mark, and Wolverine's more of a standard Marvel Legends, although slightly smaller. So they do scale pretty decently. I mean, if you're going for that 90s cartoon look, though, Sabertooth was always a lot bigger. But then again, he's not a Build-A-Figure. So that about does it, guys. There isn't a lot more to talk about here. He doesn't come with any accessories outside of the bath piece, and I don't count those. And really, for this era of Sabertooth, is there anything you really want him to have? Not really. I don't have any interest in any accessories that he might have come with. He just needs to be a big dude with some claws and a nasty expression, and I think they delivered on that pretty well. This body is getting rather outdated, and again, I wish he was bigger, but I understand, how they had to make this figure come to life, and I do like him at the end of the day. The only real true issue is that potential QC issue with that lower jaw, and like I said, I think mine is on the better end of the spectrum, whereas I've seen some more that lean towards kind of a slack jaw kind of look. Overall, though, the head sculpt is solid. Beyond that, everything about the paint and the sculpt and just the expression and the mane that's around his shoulders, I think it's really good, and they, of course, hit the nostalgia button with this particular costume. So that is going to do it for this look at the Marvel Legends Sabertooth figure from Hasbro. Let me know what you think, guys. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.